end of the regular season gets home field advantage throughout the playoffs. 3 African Americans are still in contention in the U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York City. Coco Gauff and unranked Taylor Townsend advanced to tonight's third round in the women's bracket. Coco, ranked 6th in the world, takes on Elise Mertens of Belgium. Townsend faces Karolina Muchova of the Czech Republic. Remember Townsend's name. She's an up-and-coming sister with a strong game. On the men's side, Francis Tiafoe has a third-round match tonight against Adrian Manarino of France. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Double up, 3 or 4 times, I ain't telling no lies, I just run it up. Never let a hard time humble us. Double up, I ain't telling no lies, I just, yeah. I ain't telling no lies, I just 5, 4, 3, 2, that's time. I got to you that money, my dreams come true, my life in diamonds. Who knew? Who knew? Who knew? Who knew?
KBLA Talk 1580. Yes, indeed. Let's talk about reparations. Need to be doing more of that. I'm so happy to welcome into the space to actually meet guests today. Denise Long, a 7th generation American consultant on youth centrics. She's also national coordinator for the Coalition of Concerned Freedmen, the issuer of a recent news release to college presidents regarding lineage-based affirmative action. She is an activist. Good morning.
Good morning, Dominica. I'm really pleased to be here with you.
Yeah, great to have you in. Let's meet Rashid Littlejohn, a community leader, youth development advocate, and Buffalo State College alumni, the founder of the Green Campaign Incorporated, which is a nonprofit, and the chair of the new Negro Republic Lineage Society. Welcome, Rashid.
Thanks for having me, Dominique. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you both. I'm going to start with you, Denise. I want to kind of start with a baseline. This is obviously a mission for you about reparations. I see you on social media. I see your work outside that space, not just on social media. What brought you to this issue and the urgency of reparations?
Yeah, so I got into the reparations conversation really at the international level because that's where it was happening back during Obama's time. And what brought me to the domestic level is when the conversation picked up here, because at the international level, people were trying to people of colorize, all Black people rise the reparations for the descendants of U.S. slaves. And so, I got engaged with organizations when I went to events. I signed up for their email list that were domestic, but they were Pan-African, and they weren't doing a lot at that time, back when Obama was around. So when CARICOM popped up, I was like, yes, finally somebody's doing it. Let's help the Caribbeans get their repair, and then we'll get repair for Black Americans. So for me, reparation has always made sense, because how do you harm a people so deliberately, so consistently, and then expect us to just get over it and not get redressed for the harms that have been caused to us? So for me, it's a delivery on the promise that was made, but also even if the promise wasn't made, the harm is still there and it has to be redressed, and there is no statute of limitations on that.
Great point. Rashid, I noticed same thing with you. You're really focused on this, but you make the case historically why reparations is legit. You're putting it in historical context. Some of the things we take for granted or think we know, but maybe don't.
Yeah. So, my background is in community, community leading and doing a lot of things on the ground with people who have been economically disenfranchised. So when I got involved in the conversation, it was looking at it based on the root cause, reality. And the further I dug in, I looked into Special Field Order 15. You read the script of that and you realize that the America that we live in now would have been a completely different reality had, Abraham Lincoln not been assassinated and Andrew Johnson not repealed that. So to me, it's understanding that the conditions of the community that I serve on a day-to-day basis, there's a root cause to the deprivation and to the legacy of harm that we've, still consistently be dealing with. And I don't believe collective bootstrapping is enough, right? I think it's going to take more than, the talented tenth and, all of these, certain talking points that make it seem as though we're lacking ambition. There's a structural reality that we see. So my lens is to look at it from that direction.
All right, so there's, historically and now, lots of different folks that work on reparations and have different approaches. Just explain or describe your organization. The New Negro, is that, the New Negro Republic Lineage Society?
Negro Republic is
yeah.
New Negro Republic is a lineage society. So we understand that the American Negro is a specific ethnic group in the United States, and the term Black is over-inclusive, right? It can include people from the Caribbean, people from the continent of Africa, but historically, American Negroes were those who descended from American chattel slavery. So we looked at it and understood to combat the daughters of the Confederacy, right, we have to become the children of the Negroes, right? We have to become the descendants of those who have been experiencing the greatest crime of the United States, which is slavery and the untreated badges thereafter. And as a lineage society, we position ourselves as the actual descendant community of the individuals who are fighting for repair, and not like a fringe organization who's just trying to do work for our people.
So when you say New Negro, is that what you would want to be called, or how you think Black Americans or African Americans or whatever, however you want to define it, that's what you would prefer to be called now, or you're making that historical point, i.e. Daughters of the Confederacy? Or do you feel like there's an intentional purpose in using that term now?
Very intentional, right? Because no Negroes allowed, right? Like the legacy and the history that was written that speaks towards some of the worst and greatest, right? Some of the worst experiences that we went through, and many of the greatest ones were under the term Negro. So I look at it from my father, Negro, on his birth certificate, right? My mother on hers. And when I do my genealogy, I see it. So we look at it as a new Negro perspective, similar to like Alan Locke in like the 1920s and, Carter G. Woodson with Negro History Week, just to kind of put more respect on it. Because no matter what name we go under, this government has made it clear that they know who we are. So, we're done with the hiding,
All right, I want to ask the same question when we come forward to you, Denise Long, about the term freedmen, which, we're hearing, you hear the term ADOS, you hear the term freedman, Negro, and some others, right? I mean, you mentioned Black, African American, but there's an intentionality for a lot of folks within the reparations movement in that. And I want to get your perspective on that when we continue on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you looking for a tax preparation firm that understands the unique financial challenges of African American business owners? Then look no more. Wealth Management Financial Advisors can prepare and file your individual and business taxes. They're committed to providing their clients with the best possible service. See how they make the greatest impact on your taxes. Find them at wealthmanagementlb.com or call them at 562-427-8877. That's 562-427-8877.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now, you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears. Thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
Cookie wants to be a professional wrestler.
I'm Cookie Serratos and I'm 11 years old.
She also wants to win all the medals. That's why Cookie and her family make every day count, squeezing out her best with Go-Go Squeeze.
Okay, Cookie, let's break for a Go-Go Squeeze.
Go-Go Squeeze Fruit on the Go pouches are a nutritious snack made from 100% fruit with no sugar added.
Go, Cookie!
Because when you nurture your kids, you squeeze out the best in them. Squeeze out the best with Go-Go Squeeze. Not a low-calorie food. Products range from 11 to 13 grams of sugar and 60 to 70 calories per
You're
serving.
listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like watering your lawn during the hottest time of the day and leaky faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
Are you looking to steer your career in a new direction? Driving for the Culver City Bus can be your ticket to a long-lasting career with excellent benefits and paid training. Culver City Bus is looking for customer service and safety-minded bus operators to join the growing team. Culver City Bus offers on-the-job paid training, uniform allowance, and health benefits. Culver City Bus are now even putting their money in your pocket with a one-time $2,500 sign-on bonus. Let us connect you with an essential service job. If you enjoy driving, seek real opportunities for career advancement, and passionate about making a difference in your community, then we invite you to join the team. Start your journey by submitting an application at culvercity.org/job. For more information, visit culvercitybus.com or call the live customer service operator at 310-253-6500. Again, 350-253-6500.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're talking reparations. Rashid Littlejohn is with me, and Denise Long, who's the national coordinator for the Coalition of Concerned Freedmen. So passing the mic back to you, Denise, to break down that term, why you use it, and the same thing, is that what we're meant to call you, not Black, not African American, or is it a strategic political term in that sense?
Yeah, beautiful question. So the reality is people can call themselves what they want. Multi-generational Black Americans can call themselves what they want. If you prefer African American, you can rock with that. If you prefer Black American, do that. If you just prefer American, do that. But the reality is that the United States of America has changed our names in many ways over our long time being here, from before founding to present day. And so what we want to make sure we do in a nation that has been overrun by immigration, where people who look like us are confused as us and reap the benefits of our 1960 Civil Rights Act that were designed to repair us, We want to make sure that we, the children of the Negroes, as Rashid put it, are making sure we claim all the monikers that were designations for and about us. So when you read African American on a thing, we want to make sure that it's very clear you're talking about the children of the Negroes in America and not somebody who just got off a plane from Nigeria, Caribbean, or wherever. No shade on those people, but the reality is the nation owes a debt to the Negro, to the freedmen, because it has harmed us. Now, to your question about freedmen, the reason we are known as freedmen is because we are the people in the United States of America who were chattel slaves, who Abraham Lincoln emancipated through the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863, and through whom the acts of war and the 13th, 14th, and 15th constitutional amendments were written to designate us as freed people, and that is conferred to no one else in these United States but us. Call yourself what you want, but recognize that the nation has done many things to clarify you as a specific people for harm, but also clarify you as a specific people for redress, repair, and economic restitution.
Right. No argument there. We'll circle back on this immigration question because I'm curious why it's such an emphasis, but we'll circle back to that. I don't want to get distracted right now. I want to follow this thread because I think the arguments that I've heard you and Rashid making for reparations are important, and they're conversations that need to be had. So, Rashid Littlejohn, why do you focus so much on Field Order 15? So, break that down. Talk about why you think we need to be talking about it more, and what pieces of that are often left out of the conversation.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. So Special Field Order 15 starts with the meeting with the Union General William Tecumseh Sherman with the 20 Negro American religious leaders who actually met with them before the issue was written. This is January 12th, 1865. And when asked to them, what would you like for your people, they desired land. That's what they told them, land so we could do for ourselves. So when Special Field Order 15 is issued, signed by then President Abraham Lincoln and William Tecumseh Sherman, it specifies that we would be able to get not only 40 acres in the mule when you connect with 3 heads of household, and each would get no more than 40-acre plots. It also specified that there would be no white people allowed unless for military or duty or some type of soldier protection, meaning they would only be there because we're talking about the hostility of the Confederates at that point in time and those lands that they had lost because they committed treason against the United States. And another important fact within Special Field Order 15, it describes us as Negroes. There's a line where it says the Negro is free. He must be dealt with as such. It recognizes us as citizens of the United States, and the lands that we were given, we would have been able to use our land and our labor for sale, for purchase, and we would kind of have been a self-sustained community. And the unfortunate reality is when Andrew Johnson takes that away, we still end up segregated and boxed out due to the hostility in the South. So I stand on Special Field Order 15 as the original promise. That is 40 acres in a mule. That's when that promise begins. And it was supposed to have been given to us, but an assassination happened.
Well, and it's really specific. I mean, the Field Order 15, it doesn't just say land. It says tillable land. There's got to be good land.
Yes.
And, you know,
agriculture.
And and I think a point I heard you make online, which I think is important, which is that not just getting the land, but also having the protection from, what later rises as the KKK, or what we're dealing with now, the white extremist terror that we're dealing with in this country. So it's not just having land, but having the ability to keep that land.
Yes, to be armed and protected, right, by the United States military, but also for our young and able-bodied men to be able to take arms to protect ourselves as well. It's an amazing contract, if you would want, or treaty, of that, and obviously it took a president to be killed in order for it to be removed, right? Because it came at the highest authority in wartime. The commander-in-chief sets in.
I want to ask you, Denise Long, like you make the case for reparations here in the United States, and I appreciate that you put it in the context of, you're starting on the global stage, but now specifically focus on the Black American, the Freedmen, the Negro, African American. But the Field Order 15 was canceled, and those promises were not kept. So on what basis today, we always hear this, well, I never owned any slaves. Why should I, pay for the sins of the father? Why should I be responsible? Why should my tax dollars go to Black people today who were never enslaved?
Cool. There's a lot to unpack in there. So let's first of all talk about this idea that there's some kind of statute of limitations on correcting crimes against humanity and genocide, right? And I hope we'll talk about genocide more because there's a strong case here for it. Here's why none of that matters besides what I just said. The overturn of Lincoln's approved Special Field Order 15 was done after the Confederates assassinated the President of the United States of America. Andrew Johnson was a Confederate who Lincoln thought would help unify the nation and show a strong force of the post-Civil War social contract in America, which is the full implementation of the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment and the equality of the people who were once slaves, right? And here's what Johnson did. In order, the 14th Amendment, which the Confederate states were required to ratify before we let them vote again and have political power again, they got an amnesty from Johnson to give them their powers back. And immediately upon them getting their powers, they got about continuing their treason. And here's what they swore. They swore that they would abide by and faithfully support all laws and proclamations which have been made during the existing rebellion with reference to the emancipation of slaves. So help me God. That did not happen. Johnson barely survived impeachment for his intentional sabotaging and takeover of the federal government for the interest of the Confederacy. And I would submit to you that we Americans should question, are the Union forces in control of the United States today, or is Confederate mindedness in control of the United States today? So when we talk about the fact that people don't want to do reparation, the promise was made and it was overturned through treason. Are we going to let treason stand when it's specifically called out in the Constitution as an act of war and a penalty that can be implemented, the penalty for which can be death? Are we going to act like the 14th Amendment doesn't exist, where people who refuse to, quote, fully implement the Constitution about the slaves can actually hold office in this country and sabotage reparation that was promised? So these are deep questions that we need to ask about what kind of country we want to be. Do we want to be a country that implements our Constitution, or are we going to implement Confederateness and just act like it doesn't exist?
Yeah, well, that particular question can apply to a lot more than just reparations about implementing Confederateness. We seem to be at a crossroads with that right now. But I want to stick to the conversation because that's what you guys are here to talk about. For me, and I don't know who would be the best one to talk about this, but for me, one of the talking points that I find most offensive is this idea that we should not get reparations because we're going to go waste the money on Gucci purses, or we're going to go, we're going to go. We don't have the financial literacy or the wherewithal to handle this money. And to me, if I loan you money, or you get money from me, you steal money from me, and now you're meant to give it back, you do not get to tell me how to spend it. If I want to spend it on crack rock, guess what? That's my MFing money. I'm going to spend it how I want. Now, it would be nice if we had, the kind of advantage of the kind of education and support that wealthy Americans have had. It would be nice. But the fact of the matter is, I don't even understand how you fix your mouth to say you're not going to pay me back money you owe me because you are meant to be in charge of how I spend my money, even though you're either the borrower or the thief. Rashid, I'll give that to you.
One of the international standards of redress and repair to genocide is rehabilitation. So if people were to argue that we are wasteful with our money, then I would say, well, what does financial rehabilitation look like? Because you destroyed our communities in the 1920s. So we lost nearly 100 years of generational wealth and bookkeeping, right? And had we been able to position our economic base that we were able to garner outside of losing Special Field Order 15, then the financial literacy level of our communities will look way different because we would have been in a business position to have been training that skill set, like that muscle. But because we have not, a part of that would be rehabilitation. In New York City, if you fall back on your rent and you want to get something called the one-shot deal, they offer you financial education classes to make sure you don't fall back on your rent again. That's one part, right? And then the other part is, who cares what somebody is going to do with the money that is based on a promise and because of an unpaid debt, right? If you are owed something and you're a descendant of those who have not gotten what was owed to you, and you yourself are still experiencing the continual badges of slavery, who is the individual to say that you can't get it or you don't deserve it because of how you would spend your money? I don't think that is lawful,
Yeah, I mean, it's not only lawful, it's just stupid to me, but I feel like there are certain things that are projected towards us that no one else would be expected to buy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We got about a minute and a half here before news, traffic, and sports, and we'll continue the conversation. Denise Long, it sounded like you wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, absolutely. What research shows, including research out of the University of Oxford, shows is that when poor people get extra money that is supposed to subsidize them, they spend it on essentials and saving up for the things that they will need. So they have a cash cushion. Money to poor people, which Black Americans certainly are, is the way to get out of the poverty that we have and the problems that come from poverty. It's paternalism is what you're hearing when people say that.
Yeah, well said. And certainly that bears out in the studies that we've seen about the universal basic income experiments where people are given an extra $1,000 as they were in Los Angeles, or so some small amount every month. They buy cars, they get clothes so they can get a job, they put their children in enrichment that the middle and upper classes take for granted. So that certainly is in alignment with the study that you're talking about. We are talking reparations. Denise Long is with us, and Rashid Littlejohn. Denise Long, National Coordinator of the Coalition of Concerned Freedmen, and Rashid Littlejohn, New Negro Republic Lineage Society. We continue when we come forward, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden says there's no denying the climate crisis any longer as his administration deals with several natural disasters. Biden met with his cabinet and agency officials Wednesday to discuss the federal response to Hurricane Idalia in the southeast and the devastation left behind by wildfires in Maui. In Maryland, the former president of Baltimore's NAACP, African-American Marvin Cheatham, says he's lost confidence in the city's ability to solve the Brooklyn mass shooting that left 2 people dead and 28 others injured. Cheatham and more than 30 community leaders want a congressional investigation into the city's largest mass shooting. So far, 2 arrests have been made, but none is related to the actual shootings. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earned doubled. The cash back from trips, restaurants, all doubled. Seriously, though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers take a 4-game winning streak into a showdown series with the Atlanta Braves. The Dodgers are 4 games behind the Braves for the best record in the majors. The team with the best record at the end of the regular season gets home field advantage throughout the playoffs. 3 African Americans are still in contention in the U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York City. Coco Gauff and unranked Taylor Townsend advanced to tonight's 3rd round in the women's bracket. Coco, ranked 6th in the world, takes on Elise Mertens of Belgium. Townsend faces Carolina Muchova of the Czech Republic. Remember Townsend's name. She's an up-and-coming sister with a strong game. On the men's side, Francis Tiafoe has a 3rd-round match tonight against Adrian Manarino of France. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Allocution of Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas, voiced by Ben Guillory. Good morning, Your Honor. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address the court. I've had a full and intense 20 months to reflect on the circumstance in which I find myself. It is true that I have chosen to exercise my constitutional rights as a citizen to offer the best possible defense for myself. But I feel that it's important, Your Honor, to make clear to you that I in no way want to convey anything but respect for you and for this court. Further, I want to assure you that when this is completed, I will accept the outcome of the judicial process and give full and respectful compliance in accordance with the law. Your Honor, I believe it's fair to say that this case exists somewhere between what is clearly legal conduct on one end and clearly illegal conduct on the other. In between, there is a line that distinguishes actions that are legal and actions that may be ill-advised but not illegal. While I definitely disagree as to whether I cross that line into illegal conduct, I acknowledge with clarity where I belong was at the end of the spectrum where there would be little, if any, question of even the appearance of unlawfulness. The very perception that I deviated from proper conduct in this matter is truly distressing as well as harmful, and I deeply regret it. My actions and the fallout from those actions have hurt my family, beginning with my wife of 44 years, who should never have had to go through an ordeal like this. I apologize to her with every breath and with my whole heart. And I apologize to my sons and daughter-in-law and grandchildren, as well as other family members whose lives have been disrupted and traumatically impacted. Additionally, the anguish that I feel causes me to say I'm sorry to all of my constituents, colleagues, and employees who have believed in me for so many years, but who may now have doubts. I sincerely apologize to them not only for playing a role in bringing about those doubts, but also for no longer being able to be there for them in service. I can only trust and believe that the future will afford me the opportunities to continue to find ways to serve them and their families, to remove doubt, and to restore faith. Your Honor, I give you and my former constituents and all those here today my pledge that I will find a way to continue to learn from this devastating experience, to emerge from it as a more conscientious person, and to go forward once this is behind us with humility, with renewed commitment to service, and with undaunted hope for a purposeful life dedicated to the communities who rightfully expect and deserve the very best of me. Your Honor, I thank you.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Reparations, want to talk about it a lot. Been talking about it since probably the 90s with Dick Gregory. But I'm happy to have some young voices on this conversation. Denise Long is the national coordinator of the Coalition of Concerned Freedmen. Rashid Littlejohn, founder of the Green Campaign Incorporated, and the new Negro Republic Lineage Society. Of course, we can go point by point. We're never going to be in lockstep, but lots of things that need to be addressed. So it seems like this may end up being a series of conversations if y'all are down. I don't want to lose the thread, though, Denise. You said you wanted to address the issue of genocide.
Yeah, so when you look at the history of these United States and how Black Americans, those Negroes, those freedmen that we're talking about, have continually been on the losing end of this great experiment called America, right? This land of opportunity. And every time we are on the cusp of economic repair, something happened. So with the Reconstruction happened, the Confederates were sworn back in and they continued their treason. Then you have a series of SCOTUS decisions and other actions like Plessy v. Ferguson, which codified separate but equal, so-called, in the United States. And then 100 years of Jim Crow. Right. And then when we got out of the Great Depression through the New Deal for Americans, many Black Americans benefited a little bit, but white bigotry kept us from benefiting fully. And then with civil rights, you get women shoehorned in, all of these other factors that depleted and competed with us for repair. And then you get these other actions related to flooding the country and people becoming us and losing count of who's a descendant of slave and who's not. You got fetal maternal health and fatality issues, mass incarceration, yada, yada. All that adds up very cleanly to the 5 acts of genocide in the Genocide Convention and the 1987 implementation promises that the United States made about how they are going to prevent and punish acts of genocide in the United States. And we have all the legal precedents and tools we need to do that, including the 13th Amendment mandates for Congress to lift the badges and incidents of slavery, and the 14th Amendment, Clause 1, which speaks to equal protections, and Clause 3, which says we have an obligation to get people out the paint, out of office at any level of government if they are violating the acts of the free people or violating the rights of the free people. And Rashid will have more to say about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Rashid, I mean, but... is it a zero-sum game? I mean, if you have affirmative action, does it have to be that if you include women, that automatically, diminishes what Black people are meant to get, what we are meant to get, because these policies and laws are, are pressed forward by us and meant to address the original sin of our country, which is the enslavement of the Negro, as you would call them, Black people, and the genocide of indigenous people. Is it a zero-sum game? Does it have to be a zero-sum game?
Well, apparently so, because there are only so many positions that are open at a university at a time. There are only so many dollars to go around with contracts. There's only so many percentages that a prime bidder, so many percentages of minorities, so to speak, enterprises that a prime bidder has to meet.
Got it. I mean, I get your perspective. I was actually asking Rashid, but that's fine. You've answered it. I don't agree with that, because I think what we end up doing is we end up fighting over the little portion of those contracts and those positions at universities that were set aside for so-called minorities. Why can't we cut into the part that's for the so-called dominant group? I don't want to, digress too far in that direction. I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about.
Let me, that in itself addresses the keyword minority, right?
Yeah, which is a problematic word. Yeah.
So let me tell you this. When you look at it based on an ethnic background population concept, those who descend from American chattel slavery, whether it's 50 million, 46, or people say, for those who don't take the census, maybe 60 million of a specific ethnic people, we, by ethnic bloodline, are the largest population group in the United States of America, right? Whiteness is a construct that takes a bunch of different Europeans to conflate those numbers. Asians, a bunch of different people from that area that become and are under the guise of Asian. Hispanic is everything from Puerto Rican, Mexican, Dominican. They all come under that. But us as one specific group, we are the lion's share of the population in America. We are the largest tax base as a specific people, but there's no true representation for that. So here's an example. If there's a 10% minority set aside and we only get 1.6% of that 10% for minorities, but we're the largest ethnic group here, then that is, a violation of our actual rights, right? It's creating conditions where we are fighting other minorities over small pieces that even if we got the full 10%, it wouldn't be enough to
and that's kind of the point I was making, Rashid. It's like, why are we arguing over those crumbs? It's an interesting I don't know what's going on with my voice today. It's an interesting perspective as far as, these amalgamations of groups. Clearly, Latino is like what, 24 countries.
No, quickly. I think it's mainly because our subjugation is the storyline to create those policies.
Right,
so
absolutely.
They're going to use our story to make these policies, but not give us the lion's share of the benefits, and that's exploitation at its finest.
Let's go to Fahima, calling us from Washington, D.C. Fahima, you are on with Denise Long and Rashid Littlejohn. Okay, something's happening with your phone. Is there a better part of the room where we can hear you better?
Ma'am?
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Abedagani and K-pop. I just wanted to address something that your guest had said earlier in the conversation, and I want to preface my comments by saying I was the co-founding chair of the Howard University chapter of Cobra and attended the UN Conference Against Racism in Durban, South Africa. And she had made mention of she had been working with CARICOM, and she'd found some of the other groups, the Pan-African groups, weren't doing anything. Well, I just wanted to indicate that in Cobra and the Institute of the Black World have been working with Sir Henry Beckles and CARICOM, and we work with people like the late Charles Ogletree, who was part of our Legal Defense Fund. And so we've been dealing with reparations since the time of Callie House, and it wasn't a fringe group, and we've been working collaboratively with CARICOM and Sir Henry Beckles. In fact, the Institute of the Black World, Ron Daniels, has been having conferences and working consistently and collaboratively for quite some time with Cobra. So it's not a situation where the Pan-African groups haven't been doing anything.
So you just wanted to push back on the characterization of Pan-African groups?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Got it. Thank you, Fahima. Anybody want to respond to that?
In my experience of being activated for reparations, I received a lot of talk about getting involved with things, but not a lot of connection. And so what I saw is the resurgence at the grassroots level of reparations was pulling grassroots people in to have the conversation. So what I found is it seemed to me that the international focus, Pan-African focus, reparations movement at the time that I'm referring to was a more closed group of people who were moving within their circles of concern and influence, as was not actively pulling in the grassroots.
So that may be true, but
changed because of that.
But obviously, and clearly it's changed, but couldn't it be both and? I've never understood why we have to choose. Like, to me, if, Pan-Africanists are working over here and grassroots are working over there,
Yeah, that's not my point, though.
Yeah.
My point was not that we have to choose. We don't. I'm not an either or person. I think it's both and. But you asked me about my experience.
Yeah, she did.
And why I'm involved with reparations. And I was supporting the international movement because of the things that were happening there. I think the current iteration of reparations is because of grassroots people calling in all the people, not just the people who had already made it to some level of prominence, but they were calling in all the people who had a shared heart for repair.
But I mean,
and I wasn't experiencing that before.
And so, I mean, and just real quick, because I don't want to use up all our time. I guess you guys are going to have to come back. Rashid, talk to me about what the perception is of the Charles Ogletrees from you. I mean, someone like Professor Ogletree, someone like Dick Gregory, who really did, whether it was in their closed circles or, on the grassroots or in the halls of Harvard, really did work on reparations for decades.
I know in any business, fresh eyes to a situation is always welcome. And I've realized that there's a lot of gatekeeping around reparations. And I always ask individuals, well, why wasn't it delivered when Obama, was president for 8 years and basically united all of us, right? He united the entirety of America. But some people felt as though that symbolism was enough reparations for them. So after that, Trump happens, and there's a whole new surge of individuals who want to see a difference because of what we did not get. So I don't get into that. That might be with some of the older folk. I'm a little bit more younger, talking directly towards putting fresh eyes on a situation that has not moved to a federal actual position.
Absolutely.
People still debating.
I'm all for fresh eyes, but I do think, coming from the hip hop world too, and, my study of human civilization, that fresh eyes is always more welcome when there's some respect for those, even if they made their own mistakes, who opened doors and laid groundwork. However they did that in their time and in their arena. That's just my commentary. Continuing the conversation with Denise Long and Rashid Littlejohn when we come forward. We're talking reparations on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. KBLA Talk 1580 is inviting you to join us on Saturday, September 16th, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. for our very first economic empowerment event for the community. This event is free and is powered by Caltrans. We're doing this in association with Rambo House, and here's Rambo to tell you more.
Contracts. I'm going to say it again for all of us small business owners out there. Contracts. Rambo House, KBLA, Tavis, me. Oh my God, this is going to be massive. I truly thank Caltrans for giving us the opportunity to focus on contracts. Listen, that's what it's all about to be a small business in LA. That's how we hire our own. That's how we expand our community, is contracts. KBLA1580.com is for you to have a seat at our contracts-focused event. Contract Ready does it again. We had over 900 last time. So you guys know how exciting this is. And if you just think that you want to get into contracts and you're close to it, bring your friends out for September 16th at the Marriott Hotel. Listen, you know where to register. KBLA1580.com. Come see me. I can't wait to see you. Let's do it, Tavis.
So be sure to go to KBLA1580.com for all the details. We'll see you Saturday, September 16th.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look, and unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at the gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup. And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay. Reese's. 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 Really working, actually. Reese's. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's. Reese's. Reese's.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
Denise Long, the Coalition of Concerned Freedmen, and Rashid Littlejohn, of the new Negro Republic Lineage Society, are my guests today. We're talking reparations, and we'll definitely have to do this again because a lot of stuff we haven't even barely scratched the surface of. But Rashid, you mentioned Obama and this whole idea of, when what's happened in the past, what hasn't happened in the past. I think the H.R. 40 has been, around for decades and never been signed, just to have a federal study of reparations. But what I've noticed with, at least with the ADOS groups and, Tariq Nasheed's groups and some of the new reparations groups that are more aligned with the MAGA agenda, do you think they're effectively making that argument to Republicans? Because, even when he was in office, I thought, well, this guy, I'm not a Trump supporter, but this guy, wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. Why shouldn't he be the one to implement reparations? It didn't happen then either. Do you think reparations groups are making the case to conservatives effectively?
Well, I would say I am not affiliated with those groups. We are New Negro Republic. Much love and support with Concerned Freedmen. That's on the line as well. And, our approach is policy over party, right? And I don't look at this as a Democrat nor Republican thing, right? I believe that, the uniparty, or it being bipartisan, whether you guys want to come together, and get this done, or you guys want to stay out of our way on either side and allow us to get it done, should be something that happens. So I don't politically position it for the Democrats, nor do I do it for the Republicans, because I understand that they have historically worked hand in hand to undermine us behind the scenes, hence the ending of Reconstruction. So that's more so my positioning on it. Do I think that there could be more leverage with speaking towards it? I think it would take the black representation that exists in the Republican Party and in the Democrat Party, right? If the Black Caucus is going to do a book tour, a tour based on book banning, but no tour based on reparations, I might have an issue with that. If the black conservatives are denouncing reparations and saying, all we need to do is put fathers in the house and get jobs, then I don't think they're looking at the data of the 84% of black men that are daily in the lives of their kids. So I think they kind of have a different political football that they want to kick around. So our goal is to position reparations to both parties, period. And
I wanted, Denise, I wanted you to weigh in on that too, in the sense that also I've heard you talking about this more in terms of a contract or a business deal than an emotional appeal based on the harm of our enslavement. But do you think that, sometimes I feel like reparations folks are being pimped by the Republican Party rather than making a strong case to get action, regardless of the party, but specifically from the MAGA world.
Yeah, so I am a black Republican, and I'm of the Frederick Douglass ilk. Let us remember that the radical Republicans of the Lincoln Frederick Douglass ilk are the ones who implemented the Reconstruction era.
But Frederick Douglass would not be a Republican today, if we're being intellectually honest.
Well, if we're being intellectually honest, the people who are against naming the needs and advocating for the interests of the American freedmen are not Republicans. They're antebellum Democrats. I call them out every day on Twitter in their DMs, and if I had their number, I'd be texting them the same thing. So I keep the same energy for everybody. If you calling yourself a Democrat and you're an antebellum, benign neglect, Nixon-era Democrat, then you're really a Confederate too. And so to the question that you asked, Dominique, about if Republicans are getting this message, absolutely. I am one of those people who's bringing this message directly to contacts on the Republican Party through all means available to me. And if there are Republicans who are listening to this message, and I'm sure there are, in DeSantis's campaign and Trump's campaign, who are interested in actually securing the Black American vote, you're going to have to cut a check for us, just like when you stand up in front of Jews and Hispanics and every other interest group and tell them that you're going to get them some money. So the Black vote is no longer for free. And we're voting for, as Rashid said, policy, which includes tangibles, right? Which includes reparation, which includes financial redress, which includes access to capital. So yes, it is happening, and not all Black conservatives are the same. And if you ain't what the radical Republicans were, you really need to check and see if you're actually a Republican at all.
So does that mean that you would vote for Trump only if you had something, a contract stating that there would be support for reparations?
So the short answer to that is yes, and how that's worded and how that's looked, I can do some shazzling with the words to make it what it is, but the check is going to have to be cut, right? And it's going to have to come direct to the Negroes in communities and not through opportunity zones and all this other stuff that people grift into. And he and his campaign should be well aware of that, and I'm pretty sure they are.
The fascinating conversation. I feel like that's the starting point for a whole show. Rashid, and this isn't even really fair, so maybe I should table. Well, no, I'm going to ask you. Why do you, okay, this is something that baffles me. Many people in the grassroots, I guess you'll call it reparations movement, reject the idea. They don't say African. They don't call themselves African anything. They don't connect to that. I know that, Denise, you have a different take, but I don't understand. If my birthright, as you say, is freedmen, but my birthright is also a piece of the African continent, why would I settle for less rather than all of what I am entitled to?
I agree with that.
I could say my organization just held an event with Restitution Study Group that is seeking repair from the Benin Empire, which is now Nigeria, based on the sale of the Benin bronzes, right? So, I don't know if you're talking about that part of it, but there is a group that we work with that is looking at the role of the African slave traders and the slave trade heirs, because people don't talk about the existence of these different nations that have these children and these families who are the heirs of the slave trade in Africa. And one of them is the Nigerian Benin community and individuals connected to that we're going after repair.
It's not what I was talking about, but we don't have enough time to close it out, so we'll have to do that in part 2. Real quick, your contact.
You can find me on the internet as Pamela Denise Long, on Twitter at @PDeniseLong. You can see my information on Newsweek and at www.concernedfreedmen.com.
And Rashid?
I am New Negro Republic on Instagram, StopAntiNegroHate.org online, and Negro Republic on Twitter.
Thank you guys both so much. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thanks, Dominique. Look forward to next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Tavis Smiley is up next. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
To the city's ability to solve the Brooklyn mass shooting that left 2 people dead and 28 others injured. Cheatham and more than 30